On this episode of Purposely Curious, we talk to Liam Thomson about his journey with ulcerative colitis. Liam walks us through how for some time doctors did not know what was wrong with him and how he has managed to deal with his condition after he was finally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. So, join us as we discuss Liam's journey. Get nice and cozy as this episode starts now. Hello, everyone. On this episode, I have Liam Thomson, who's talking to us all the way from London. Hi, Liam.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, it's a bit wet over in the UK, as you might expect.
Yeah.
But other than that, good. Yeah.
What would you say for anyone who's never been to London? Like, how much sunshine do you get on a regular day?
To be perfectly honest, it gets really quite hot in London. Well, in the summertime. Like 2 weeks ago, I think we had over the whole UK. There was the first ever weather alert for extreme heat, which is the first time in history. And so, yeah, it does actually get quite hot over here. It's been raining for the last couple of weeks, to be honest. But before that, we had like a really big heat wave. And where I'm from, I'm from Scotland. It's you can get rain, sunshine, snow, everything in one day.
Wow.
Yeah, Scotland's crazy. And so compared to where I'm from, it's a lot sunnier. Where I'm from, it's a lot more wet and cold. So I'm not really complaining all that much.
Yeah, and I'm such a big fan of England and Scotland, and I love how green everything is. Being from LA, everything is so, there's green, but the weather's very Mediterranean, very warm,
Yeah.
a lot of sunshine, not a lot of rain. So when I go over there, well, I haven't been to Scotland, but when I go to England or Europe in general, I just love how much green there is, and I look like a child at a candy store, just look at all the grass. Things you might take for granted, I find beautiful.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons I want to go to where you're originally from is I loved seeing all those castles out there online, and I'm always like,
We've got a lot.
Yeah, I need to get out there. I love castles, anything castles. I love reading up on history. And when I'm taking tours of these castles, I'm imagining myself in that time. I love it. Love it. The pictures are amazing.
We've got if there's one thing, it's funny actually, because having grew up in Scotland and lived there my whole entire life. I've only been in London maybe 2.5 years. But having lived there my whole life, I didn't really fully appreciate just how scenic and how beautiful Scotland really is. And I only really properly recognized it now that I don't live there, to be honest. So anytime I travel home, or anytime I go back, I almost feel like a little bit of a tourist in my own home. It's I'm always taking pictures. I'm always, looking to Scotland's very mountainous, so hike hills, and it's if you get the chance to go. Of course, I'm very biased in in promoting Scotland, but no, truly, if you do get the chance to go, then 100%, especially the Scottish Highlands. There's some really. I think actually you can get a train if you do go to Scotland. You can get a train from Glasgow. From Glasgow to it's a place called Malig, which is really quite far north. And then from Malig you can get a ferry to the Isle of Skye. But that train journey from Glasgow up through the Highlands, I think it was maybe a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, I think it was voted at that time the world's most beautiful train journey at that time. And so it's I didn't really have a full appreciation for any of it until I actually left. So I think if you get the chance to go, 100%, you definitely should.
Yeah, it's definitely on my list of places to visit. So keep posting those things because I love. It just inspires me to want to go.
Yeah.
But I wanted to have you on because I've kind of followed your journey with diagnoses that you
Mm,
had and surgeries that you had. And I thought it would be nice for you to, if you wanted to, go over what your experience was because it seems like you had pretty gnarly, like intense surgery.
mm,
And, to kind of follow through the years, kind of how you felt or how
mm,
good you feel now that you've kind of passed through all of that.
mm.
I thought it'd be nice to educate us and at the same time kind of maybe normalize some of these conditions for for all of us. And
Yeah,
so you were telling me that you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So how did you, I mean, what symptoms were you having when you were diagnosed?
sure. So it was probably maybe around 2011. I think, yeah, I'd probably around then. I was in my second year of university, um, and when you're at university, you're there, not just studying, but you kind of burn the candle at both ends, I suppose. Like there was a lot of partying, there was a lot of going out and partying with friends
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. And I don't know, I just I felt there was a time where I just started to feel tired all the time, and I kind of put it down to I was working, I was studying, um, going out quite a lot, and so I probably thought it's probably just my lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably just I'm doing too much, wearing myself out. And yeah, I just felt I was always like really, really tired all the time, and finding it even a struggle to get out of bed some days.
Oh.
And then gradually I started losing quite a lot of weight, um, and which I couldn't really explain. I mean, I was losing lots of weight, and then I started getting a lot of stomach problems, stomach issues, like stomach cramps quite a lot, and I mean, as a symptom of ulcerative colitis, it's you have to go to the bathroom quite a lot,
Mm-hmm.
where especially when you are in a flare up. And so I was going to the bathroom maybe like 8, 9, 10, 11 times a day,
Oh, wow.
before I was diagnosed, and when I was going to the bathroom, it started progressing into like I was just like passing blood and stuff.
From the
Um,
irritation.
yeah, yeah, it's just there was a lot of blood, and so I was like, well, and I sat on it for a while, to be honest. I didn't do anything about it for about 6 months because, um, well, I don't know why, to be honest. I just kind of ignored it, and just carried on doing what I was doing, going to uni and going to work and whatever else. But it really did get to a point where I was started to become really quite unwell. Where I was struggling to function correctly. I was struggling. I mean, I'd be walking down the street and I'd be feeling really, really faint and feeling like I was going to pass out. And there was, yeah, and so I went to my doctor and just kind of explained, that for a few months now I've been having these symptoms. There's I go to the toilet and there's blood and I'm there like 10 times a day, and I just feel tired and drained all the time. Um, and so yeah, they put me through some, we did some tests.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, actually, there was a little bit of a misdiagnosis. So there was,
Mm.
I think they had said, well, your weight loss could be attributed to a thyroid problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, there was that, and so they kind of, and there was like an iron deficiency and stuff there as well. So like they gave me some like just like iron medication for iron deficiency, and gave me some other suggestions and whatnot. But it wasn't helping. Like I was becoming like really quite unwell, and I ended up that I think it kind of really became apparent that something was seriously wrong. I was on a university field trip in the Scottish Highlands, funnily enough,
Mm-hmm.
And then on the first day there, so it was with university. Um, yeah, I woke up one morning and I was in the worst pain that I'd ever felt in my
Wow.
whole entire life, and I was in agony. And I got rushed to hospital. Taken off the field trip and rushed to hospital in a place called Inverness. Um, and they thought my appendix had maybe burst.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were gearing up to do some potentially take my appendix, do surgery on my appendix. And luckily, whatever it was that was going on kind of subsided. It kind of just went away as quick as it had come. But they kept me in hospital for a couple of days and then let me leave. But it became apparent then that there was obviously something not quite right. And
Mm-hmm.
so after some tests and stuff, and a brief missed diagnosis, I was eventually diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease. And I mean, it wasn't a complete surprise, um, given that. So an inflammatory bowel disease is actually something that runs in my family.
Oh.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess just to give you a little bit of an insight,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of background to it. So, um, very sadly, unfortunately, so my mum had a lot of chronic health issues. I believe she had ulcerative colitis for during a period of her life, and it progressed into a lot of other things. And she had a lot of operations and a lot of surgery in her life. And unfortunately, when I was 3 years old, she passed away as a result.
Oh.
And I believe she was only or maybe in her mid late 30s, maybe. So she was very, very young. And then when I was 7 years old, so my oldest brother also developed a lot of chronic health conditions, and unfortunately, he also passed away when I was seven
Wow.
as a result of um, chronic health conditions. And then when I hit the age of around 20, 21, I started, developing something, but I didn't know what it was at the time. And then eventually it was, diagnosed as inflammatory bowel disease. And it wasn't a great shock or surprise given my family history. So, yeah, it's something that I guess affected me both directly and indirectly, if you like, my whole entire life. To be honest, it's very much shaped um, where I am today and who I am today, be it through experiences and direct experiences. And yeah, I guess that's kind of where, and then it all sort of for me, it all kind of kicked off from 2012, and that's where it all began, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So now it seems like there's a genetic link,
Mm.
or is it environmental, or they just don't know, that, you know, because it seems like, and I guess my question, that's one question. The second one would be, when you got diagnosed, did certain things with your family make sense, as far as, with them passing, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Mm.
I'm assuming all, like, did it kind of make certain things that maybe you as a child saw makes more sense?
Um, I mean, I think um, certainly with so for like with my mum, I think because I was really young, because I was only 3 years old, I only have maybe one or two very um, they're not very big memories, quite short,
Mm-hmm.
fleeting memories of my mum.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have much understanding anyway. And I think back then, I mean, that was like 1993. There wasn't a huge amount of research and as much knowledge back then as what there is now, with regards to chronic health conditions, especially with regards to like with her, and certainly with my brother. The condition my brother passed away from is a really rare condition called visceral myopathy.
Mm.
And it's and they didn't know, and they still don't really know, because all of this kind of came up when I was in hospital. They still don't really know what caused, especially with my brother, a lot of his what happened with him. because it is a very rare condition. And so I guess um, I don't know if it provided more of an understanding for me. Probably, but I guess I guess in some sense, I get it because I've always wondered, like growing up. I mean, of course, I always wondered because I was so young when I lost my mom and my brother. I had always kind of wondered what they would have went through and what they were like and what and so I guess it gave me a bit of an understanding into what it must have been like um,
Mm-hmm.
for them because I was probably experiencing a lot of things that they um, experienced in their lifetime. Um, and so yeah, it probably gave me a little bit of an insight, I guess, into what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, it's I think from my understanding, it is a definite, although it's not confirmed, but they believe it probably is a genetic thing
Mm-hmm.
because it's always been on my mum's side of the family. I mean, it's never on my dad's side.
Mm-hmm.
There's never been anything, but certainly with it seems to have. I don't know where it's come from. I mean, I don't know if it seems to have started with my mum, and then obviously two of her kids, and actually my sister's got Crohn's disease actually. So there's another, which is another version of obviously inflammatory bowel disease, and so yeah, it's a definite. I think it's a definite
Yeah.
hereditary thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's an enzyme that's missing.
Mm,
I know for a fact when I was studying for school, when they would talk about Crohn's disease, it was like it would hit certain culture, like genetic cultures,
mm,
kind of. So I'm just wondering, I should probably start looking into that more. I'm more curious.
mm,
But going back to your diagnosis, so now you're diagnosed. You
mm.
probably felt relieved to know that there's a name for what you're experiencing at this
Yep.
point. So, I mean, were you depressed leading up to this diagnosis, not knowing what it was, what that was wrong with you?
Yeah, big time. Big time. To be honest, yeah. I mean, it was having a massive impact on my life. But when you're in your early 20s and you're at university, it's you're there, of course, to educate yourself and
And have a
and
social
study,
life.
but you're also there to have the best time of your life.
Yes.
And I absolutely was not having the best time of my life. It was it was kind of robbing me of my freedom really because I couldn't it was so bad that I couldn't um I couldn't leave the house without knowing where there would be restrooms, without knowing where I could
Wow.
stop off somewhere. I couldn't because that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time I just didn't leave the house. A lot
Mm.
of the time, you'd be invited to parties or you'd be invited to events and stuff, and you can't go because you don't know how if you're going to be well or not. Um, and I think I definitely had an effect on my mental health in that it was just kind of robbing me of things that I kind of took for granted. Just like being able to walk down the street with
Right.
that, it's just something that you take for granted. Just being able to walk down the street, and I couldn't even do that without having a little bit of anxiety attached to it, without having some fear attached to it, because as the symptoms it are. Um, you don't get much warning with it. So if you get you'll suddenly get like an urge. Well, certainly with my experience, I don't know if this is kind of what the experience is like for others, but I you would just suddenly get an urge, and then you've got like a couple of minutes, and it's like you don't have a lot of you don't have a lot of time, and you don't have a lot of control either, to be honest, and so yeah, there was a lot of anxiety even just leaving the house, and things that you take for granted. Um, so yeah, and that definitely did have an impact on
Yeah.
my, I would say my mental health for sure.
Now,
Um,
you're young at this point.
mm, yeah,
How was dating? Did you not want to date or did, obviously because you felt like it impacted your
yeah,
everyday to day?
yeah. I mean, I was quite fortunate in when the diagnosis came. I was in a relationship when the diagnosis happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't. it didn't affect my dating life because I was already with someone, but it did definitely affect aspects of that relationship, 100%.
Right. Oh,
Yeah, in terms of I was just always so tired and always so drained and always and you almost feel like a bit of a burden at the same time because it's like
oh
you're
wow.
always sick,
Mm-hmm.
and you're always unwell, and so you kind of feel like you're robbing that other person of their kind of social life to a degree and things that they would like to do as well because you can't do it with them sometimes I could and sometimes I couldn't, um, and so that kind of plays on your mind, um, as well, and that well, what my condition is impacting other people as well, and that's not a great feeling either.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so it did. I mean, it had, so yeah, it didn't affect my day in life, but it did affect relationships for sure.
So now you've been diagnosed, and what was the treatment plan that they gave you, and has it
Mm,
helped, and does it work? And how has your life changed, whether it's diet or,
mm.
fill us in.
Um, so yeah, I was put on a course of, so it was some anti-inflammatory um, drugs, um, and they didn't work. So and it was a case. It was just kind of, I was just getting given all different types of meds, just trying to see what worked, what my body reacted to, and what my body didn't. And in terms of like lifestyle, I mean, yeah, they say, okay, so you need to kind of eat as healthy as you can. Although there is when it comes to things such as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, there's a perception that, well, if you change your diet, you'll be fine. I used to get it all the time. I used to get people saying, well, if you just eat healthier, you won't have these problems. And I said, well, that's not how it works. my
Yeah.
my immune system is literally attacking me. That
Mm-hmm.
nothing. It doesn't matter what I'm eating. That's it's still going to do it. Like, definitely diet. You can lessen the impact of it, through changes to your diet and your lifestyle. That there will be certain foods that will trigger flare-ups. Maybe like spicy foods, for example. So
Mm-hmm.
I cut out eating like spicy stuff for the most part. I stopped eating like red meat and stuff because red meat is very hard to digest. I Yeah, so I made some dietary changes, although, but there was, even when I did change my diet, I was still really really ill a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I guess it was just kind of trying to find the right balance with regards to like the medication, and to be honest, I was on a lot. I was on a lot of medication. I was on max. It got to the point where I was on like max dose of about maybe like four or five different types of meds. And so I was taking like maybe 7, 8 pills a day every single day, to try and control it. And then it kind of got to a point where I was still in and out of hospital quite a lot. This is while I was at university, still trying to get my degree while dealing with this at the same time. And I was in and out of hospital quite a lot. And then it got to a point where they put me on some, it's like, it's called they're called it's called infliximab infusions. I don't know what it would be called. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's called Remicade. Maybe in
Mm-hmm.
the I think maybe it might be recognized as that in the US. And so it got to that point where every 8 weeks I'd go into hospital for a few hours and get infusions, into my arm, to try, and which is a very aggressive form of treatment to try and, shut off specific parts of my immune system to try and stop it, from attacking itself.
Right.
But with all these meds and these infusions and stuff come, of course, side effects. And so, so a lot of these side effects were, again, yeah, like general just fatigue, like chronic fatigue, very tired, all the time. Um, it's, appetite and stuff. Sometimes it could affect like my skin and stuff would break out, like rashes and blotches and stuff, so every now and then, and
Mm-hmm.
things that didn't really ever happen before. And so it's almost like, and as well as that, I mean, especially with the infusions, and there was also drugs that I was taking, pills I was taking called azathioprine. They're very toxic for your body in general,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was at greater risk. I had to sign like waivers and stuff to say that I recognize I'm at greater risk of things such as like skin cancer, certain types of like skin cancer and stuff
Oh
by
wow.
taking these medications and stuff. And so it's almost like, you take all these meds to try and help you with one thing, but it leaves you open to other things.
Yeah. Wow.
Because my immune system, I was taking meds to close my immune system off. I was taking other meds to stop me from picking up um, infections and flu and everything else. And so I was on a lot of meds. And to be honest, sometimes they would work for maybe a few months at a time, and then maybe 6, 7 months later, I'd have another flare up. And so, yeah, the, the meds were kind of hit and miss, I would say.
So where are we now with your treatment?
Well, it's I'm on right now. I'm on nothing right now, which
Wow.
is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm on nothing. Um, and that's I mean I can't really explain it, but so I mean I for example when it gets, say, we fast forwards from like university, so uni's done, I've graduated from uni 2015.
Mm-hmm.
If we fast forward to maybe 2017, um, yeah, I again, quite unwell, etc. But I was out. Um, it was a friend's 30th birthday party actually,
Mm-hmm.
in Glasgow, and I just didn't feel right. I felt I just felt off. My stomach felt very sore, um, and over the course of the night, I was like getting really bloated, very very bloated, and it kept going on and on and on, and then it just wouldn't stop, and then it was kind of stretching right to like my kidneys and my back and stuff, and it got to a point I was in absolute agony and I couldn't move, and um, I went to hospital, did some scans and stuff, kept me in for a few days. It wasn't a great party.
Yeah.
um, Kept me in for a few days, and then just said, yeah, probably just a flare up of your colitis. Here's some steroids, to kind of put a lid on it, and then they let me go home. I get home maybe a few days later, the exact same thing happens again. And then I have to go back to hospital, this time in Edinburgh, and to do scans again. And yeah, the scans showed that my small bowel had twisted.
Oh.
Um, and so, yeah, very different. This was like kind of different to what I'd ever experienced before, because where my colitis is, it's in my colon. It's not in my small bowel. And so this was a separate issue. This is something that had never happened before. And so, yeah, I mean, I went into hospital expecting it to be something, with to do with my colitis, and then I got into hospital and they said, yeah, like the scans have showed that your small bowel is twisted, and we're gonna have to take you into theatre like right now, which is quite scary. Um, it's not what I was not what I was expecting to hear. Um, and so I was taken into theatre, and they did some keyhole laparoscopic surgery to repair it. They untwisted it and put it back in place. And I spent maybe a week in hospital, and then I was discharged. And then on the day that I was discharged, it happened again. It twisted again on the day I'd only just been home for maybe 3, 4 hours. And then I started my whole body was just expanding,
Mm-hmm.
rapidly again. Straight back to hospital, and then some more scans. Same thing. When small bowel had twisted again. And from what they said, it was like a full on twist, like the full thing. It just had like twisted. Um, and so for this was operation number two. It was open surgery, because they couldn't explain why it was twisting. Because usually there would be an obstruction or something in there that's maybe causing it. to
Mm-hmm.
twist. But there was nothing. There was nothing there. Um, it was just twisting on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they opened me up. They put it back in place, stitched me back up again. Maybe this time I was in recovery for maybe a couple of weeks. Um, and then it happened a third time while I was still there. Um, and then that yeah had to open me up again for a third time. And this time it was kind of getting to a stage where it was. I think they were they sort of considering like, do we take this thing out? Um, do we remove part of it? Um, or is there something else that we can figure out to try and stop it from moving around? And from what I believe, they made incisions into I don't know, something internally, and they placed the small bowel into the incisions so that when they healed, it would congeal and kind of hold it in place.
Oh, okay.
Which was quite smart of them, I guess. It was an on the spot decision. I think it was sort of like last resort to try and not cut anything out and not
Yeah.
remove anything, because without your small bowel, then yeah, life is very, very difficult. It's not. I mean, you can of course you can. I mean, I know you can live without your colon, which I kind of expected, because when it got to I remember saying to the surgeon, I was like, if it's my colon, which is weird because I thought it was my colitis. I was like, if it's my colon, just remove it, like take it out. I'll live with a colostomy bag. I'll be fine with it. I'll get over it. I'll learn to live with it. I know people who have colostomy bags and they live
Mm-hmm.
perfectly normal lives. Um, and then this is he provided me with a little bit of education where he's like, well, it's not your colon, it's your small bowel, and if we remove it, that's very different to having your colon removed, because your small bowel, of course, is um, uh, what sends all the nutrients around your body. It's what yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
can't really live without it. And if we take it out, you'll be on a machine for the rest of your life. To being fed through a machine for the rest of your life, essentially. And that was like mind blowing. It was mind blowing to me because I had no idea of the ramifications. I had no idea just how serious things were. Um, and so they did what they could to try and save it, which they did. However, after the third operation, the recovery was just my body had just had enough. It was, I mean, we're talking like three major operations in the space of 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, um, and yeah, my body just basically shut down.
Wow.
I had some infections. Um, my I was being fed through a tube into my neck,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, I couldn't drink anything. I couldn't obviously eat anything. I had this like this gastric tube, this NG
NG
tube
tube.
going up, NG tube. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Up for I had three of them, down at one point, like over the course of the period I was in hospital, and I was bedbound for eight. I was in hospital bedbound, connected, hooked up to all these machines for like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, and so and it was really, really rough, and they couldn't really tell me why this was happening. I mean, that it was like, well, can you tell me why this keeps happening? Can you tell me why everything keeps twisting and what's going on? And they're like, we can't, we don't know. And so they phoned around other hospitals around the UK to see if they could get some information, to see if there was any evidence of this having happened before. They couldn't really find anything. Um, and then it became it was getting quite concerning, where my closest family member, the most senior person in the family, if you like, is my sister. And it was quite concerning, because you've got my surgeon there, my sister there, and me there, and he's like, yeah, like, we can't lie, like, your brother's not, he's really not well, and we don't really know why, and we can't really tell you how to fix it. We can only just kind of do what we can do, and kind of hope for the best, and hope that it doesn't happen again. Um, and so I think yeah, that it was a really tough, really tough
Time.
period.
Yeah.
And I would say mentally as much as physically. I mean, in my mind, what I kind of thought was happening here was, like, I'm not getting out of here. Like I'm not going to make it out. And that's kind of what, and I definitely like I unraveled when I was in there for a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to come out. Like I'm not coming out. I'm
Wow.
20 that time. I'm 26, 27 years old, and my thoughts at the time were like, well, it happened to obviously my mum, and it happened to my brother, and I was like, well, I was convinced that this was it, that this was what was happening with me,
Wow.
and so it was a really really rough period, and I'm very very thankful. The surgery team in Edinburgh, like
Mm-hmm.
massive. I owe a lot to them because they done such like a great job on me and kind of keeping me together and not removing things, and it was yeah, and I got there eventually, and I finally got home, but it's obvious to answer. Well, that was a very long drawn out answer, but to answer kind of like your original question, like, am I what's the kind of situation right now? From being discharged from hospital to where I am now, my actual colitis has not actually flared up and given me any trouble for around 3 years, 4 years. So I've went from between 2012 to 2017, probably multiple hospital visits a year to address this situation with my colitis, to now where I've not really had any problems with my colitis, but I have had issues with my small bowel, and so yeah, it's I'm just patched together, I suppose.
So basically, them clipping that in surgery kind of
Mm,
fixed the issue. It sounds like, because I guess they did it so that it heals with
yep,
this your skin inside your internal mucosa,
yep,
so that it doesn't move. Which
yep,
wow,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
And I hope that that is the patch that you needed. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And how old are
It,
you now?
I'm 30. Yeah.
30. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very happy to hear, after you kind of going through everything you've been through, that it's been 3 years without you having to flare up. So it can give you some
Mm,
sense of normalcy. You're in that age, you're still, meeting people, hanging out, and, to
mm,
now maybe not, obviously I'm sure you have that fear of you having a flare up always, but for you to at least experience 3 years of not having a flare up, to me, I mean, I find it, I'm amazed. I'm happy for you.
it's yeah. I mean, I don't really understand it.
Yeah.
I don't understand how because it's the colitis stuff is separate to the whole surgery, which is the crazy thing about it. And, but the colitis itself, ever since yeah, it's just stopped, and obviously it's not like I'm cured, because there is no cure for it. It's not like it's went away. It's still there somewhere in the background, but it's just, I mean, I have my off days. Like I have days here and there where um you know I maybe can't make it into work, but I just work from home. I can micromanage it, so like I know my it's not at a level that I can't ever manage. It's at a level where I know how to control it. Um, and so, but yeah, it's crazy. I was on, like I said, I was on a huge amount of medication for a good six years or so, and now I'm not really on it. Although I don't think my consultants are happy that I'm not on anything. I think they asked, would they want me on at least a base level of anti-inflammatories. But the way I've kind of, I mean, I'm not a medical expert, and I wouldn't obviously recommend anyone else follow this or do this. But um, I kind of feel like I kind of feel like maybe the meds that I was on for a lot of years weren't working, because I was on them for like 6 years every single day for 6 years, and I almost feel like maybe I don't know, maybe my body became kind of immune to them to a
Mm-hmm.
degree,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Um, and so I kind of feel like I don't want to go back on the medication unless I absolutely have to, because at
Mm-hmm.
the moment I don't feel the need to.
Right.
I mean, when I was discharged from hospital in 2017, my weight had dropped to 52 kilograms, 52. kilos. I don't know what that is. My math is terrible. So whatever that is in pounds. And so, I mean, right now, without the help of medication and just me trying to live as good a life as I can, in terms of, having a decent diet and exercising. I mean, I say exercising very loosely. I could be better at exercising, but I do try. I mean, I'm probably as heavy and healthy as I've ever been in my whole entire life right now. I mean, I'm sitting at around maybe a couple of years ago, I was 52 kilos. Right now, I'm 76. And so, and that's without me taking any meds or anything right now. It's just been me trying to live a good life, I suppose. Now, I'm not saying that that's what, if your doctor tells you to do something, then absolutely, I recommend you should probably do it. But I don't know. I've got a system right now that I find is working for me. That seems to I keep me relatively healthy and pain free, and I guess I'm just trying to maintain it, which is a massive difference. It's a huge turnaround from where I was 3 years ago. I mean, 3 years ago, I didn't even think I was going to make it out of the hospital, let alone make it out that year alive. And so to be where I am right now, I'm as shocked as anyone, and and I'm not taking it for granted. And because I know that it could rear up at any point, I know that I could be fine right now, and tomorrow I might not be. I'm very aware of that, and so yeah, I guess I'm just trying to make the most of things while they're still good.
Yeah, well, I want to take the time to thank you, Liam, for joining us on Purposely Curious and sharing your journey. I know that ulcerative colitis is very common. One of the things we hear about now in the last decade is like irritable bowel syndrome. So, you're not alone in the fact that there's a lot of people out there trying to figure out for years what's wrong with them, right? And so I appreciate you maybe someone can hear this and maybe talk to their doctor, right? And say, could it be this?
Yeah.
Or, just having more knowledge for some of us of what it is that people with chronic diseases go through, a better understanding. Because kind of like what you said, right? People were like, well, if you eat healthier, that'll fix your problem. And so it's good to talk about these things so that we can bring an understanding to people that, it's more than that, and so I do appreciate you taking the time to share that with us.
Yeah, no problem. And, I think that there needs to be greater awareness of, no matter, even, with, inflammatory bowel disease, but, any, all chronic health conditions, because especially with things such as inflammatory bowel disease, it's an invisible disease. And so you often, it can often be very difficult to tell that someone is going through something such as that and the impacts it's having on their life. And so yeah, and I think and it's stuff that people, I guess, even things are improving, of course, awareness is improving, but I think there still needs to be more awareness about these things. And yeah, hopefully it's it's been useful for anyone listening.
Yeah, it's been useful for me, so I have a better understanding of what you've been through, and it goes more into details to the pictures that I've seen of you. Yeah, thank you so much. I do hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Yes, and I want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Purposely Curious. See you guys next time. Bye. That was episode 68 of the Purposely Curious podcast. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on most podcast platforms. And follow us on social media at Purposely Curious on Instagram and at Purposely C Pod on Twitter. That's Purposely, the letter C, Pod. Until next time, you know what to do.